giving is receiving multiples, makes it easy. And God says, you can even test me on this one. So you see, it's not so simple. So what's not so simple, God gives encouragement, and the encouragement is what? It's not you giving, you're going to receive multiples in return. To assume a debt of gratitude, to be a debtor, it's not easy. So God only gives us the obligation of being debtors of appreciation to Him, only where it cannot be seen in any other way other than I am the full beneficiary of God's kindness. Let's talk about Avery Yarden, the Transjordan side. If I wouldn't have asked, would He be given? So who initiated it? Why ultimately did God release it to us? Because we had the insight to take the initiative and ask, regardless of the possibility how Moshe may react, because Moshe reacted initially. You mean to say this is going to be a reenactment of the spies? You're going to discourage your brothers from going in? He reprimanded them initially. So afterwards they clarified their position. But initially Moshe reacted to their request. But so we took the initiative. We're willing to take whatever chance there is by making this request, regardless of the ridicule that we're going to receive for this. So we had something to say about it. Of course, God agreed. He agreed. He acquiesced to our request. God forbid, He acquiesced. Chas v'sholom. God doesn't acquiesce to anything. Right? You asked, He said, it's yours. You could have it. So because it's not as absolutely clear that it's totally His beneficence, His kindness that He gave it to you, God doesn't burden you with an obligation, with a debt of gratitude, that you have to declare your appreciation to Him. That's one way to understand it. But it's really on a simple level. That's a simple level. Where does God demand, create an obligation to express your debt of gratitude, where it's undeniably, indisputably clear it's Him and not you? What do we have to do with the land of Israel proper? It's what is it? Asher Hashem Nosei Boch. God gave it to you. It's from the patriarchs, promised, delivered, and that's why you're there. If that's the case, you have to sing God's praises. You have to declare your gratitude to God. That's your debt of obligation. That's your debt of gratitude. So since Avery Yadin is not so simple, God did not want to impose such a hefty burden that they have to declare, because it's more than words. It's sincerely expressing your thankfulness. And we find that a person has to bring a thanks offering, what we call the Todah. Now, when do you bring a thanks offering? If a person's life was in jeopardy and he could have died, and despite the circumstance he did not die, you bring a korban, a sacrifice, to express your thankfulness to God that you're alive. What are some of the examples? A person traverses a desert. Holchei Midbar. The likelihood of surviving after going through a desert, it wasn't so simple. So when you come out of the desert alive, you have to thank God that you're alive, therefore you bring the thanks offering. Person travels the high seas. You have to, which is the equivalent of Birchas HaGomel. One says the blessing of a Gomel, thanking God. And you come back alive, the ship did not sink. You came back alive, you thank God. The person who recovers from a serious illness, where he could have died, you bring a korban todah. A woman gives birth and survives the birth, and she's intact, she's alive, she brings a thanks offering. A man is in prison, and it's not simple that you come out alive, and you come out, you're released, you bring a thanks offering. Now, what exactly are you saying when you bring that thanks? You say, you know something, everything's a statistic. Let's say the statistic is most people, when they come out of the traverse a desert, or they travel the high seas, most people do survive. You have to say thank you. Everything's a statistic. So if that's the case, why say thank you? You shouldn't. But yet the Gemara cites verses, psukim, then every one of these instances, you have to acknowledge God for allowing you to be alive. So now the question is always, what is a statistic? Is a statistic means most people don't die? Or a statistic is, even though each one of them should have died, God's attribute of mercy, despite their shortcomings, each one of these people, although it may be majority, they're alive. Therefore, each person, though the majority, but each person of that comprises the majority, miraculously is alive. So if each one experienced a miracle, and he's a beneficiary of a miracle, that means each individual has to bring a thanks offering. That's what it is. But it's not so simple to see it that way. You would say, you know something? I'm part of a statistic. Why should I say thank you? If people who don't rise in the morning, and other people do rise in the morning. Most do. Do I have to bring a thanks offering when I rise in the morning? No. So if most people survive the high seas, or when they traverse a desert, or they give birth, why bring a thanks offering? Evidently, there's a difference. When you go to sleep, you're meant to wake up in the morning. But you're not meant to travel the high seas, and you're not meant to, that's your choice. Sleep, you have to sleep. That's just a reality of life. So if there's an existence, you're meant, you still have to be thankful. When you wake in the morning, you say, Modani lefonecha, give thanks to God that he returned our soul. But factually, one doesn't bring a thanks offering. Because existence means a human being has to sleep. A human being doesn't have to travel the high seas, and a human being doesn't have to what? Doesn't have to traverse a desert. So that you chose to put yourself in that situation, and you come out alive, although the statistic is most may survive, you still bring the thanks offering. That's the difference. But it's the same thing here. If you wouldn't have asked, God wouldn't have had to endow it to you. It's true. But factually speaking, why is it yours? Because God gave it. But it's not as clear. It's not, as we call it, black and white, as Israel proper. Every Yardeh, God says, I will not burden you. That's one understanding. The other understanding is something interesting. The Gemara tells us there's a principle. If the person wants to choose a path in life, the person wants to choose a path of crime, God will lead you on that path. Because this is within the context of free choice. If a person has no choice, Torah says you're not permitted to steal. And if you steal, you must return the stolen article. And there are many variables and levels of this. But if a person doesn't succeed in his life of crime, how does he ever become a criminal? So God says, no, something, you choose a path, I will present situations that you'll be able to actually meet whatever your aspirations are, even though they may be negative. Even though your ideals may be things which are corrupted and perverted and warped, so the path you choose to walk, that path, I will lead you along that path. Positive and negative. Okay? That's what it is. Now, the Medrash says something phenomenal. The Medrash tells us the members of the tribe of Reuven and Gad had great livestock, great amounts of livestock. Yilamdenu Rabbeinu, Rabbi, teach us, Kama matonos nivru b'olam. How many gifts did God create in this world? What's considered a gift? Kachshni Rabbeinu, the rabbis taught us, Shalosh matonos bora kodesh b'olam. There are three gifts God created in this world: Chochmah, wisdom; Gvura, power, physical power; Osher, wealth. Those are the three gifts. Zoch adam le'echad mehen. If a person merits to have one of these gifts, notel chendas kol olam. You've taken the most precious part of this world. That's how phenomenally precious it is. Zocha b'chochma. If you merit wisdom, zocha b'kol, then you have everything. Wisdom is the ultimate. Zocha b'gvura. If you merit power, physical power, zocha b'kol. Of course, with physical power, you can do phenomenal things if you utilize the power, physical power, might, properly. Wisdom, you use it in a positive vein, you have everything. It's all encompassing. Zocha ba'osher, you merit great wealth. Zocha ba'kol. You can move mountains to do phenomenally good things with wealth. A mosai, but when do these gifts engender proper things and good things? Zmanche matno shemayim. That's a divine gift. If God gifted it to you, ubos mikoch hagvura shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's endowed and ordained by God Himself, then wisdom, power, wealth is the ultimate. Al gurosav oshu shel odom. But what about the power and the wealth which is man-made? Einu klum, nothing. Not only is it nothing, ultimately it's destructive, and the person will self-destruct due to this. These gifts which do not come from God, sofely possible, ultimately they will cease to be. The two great wise men who existed in the history of this world. Who are they? One was a Jew, one was a Gentile. Achitophel Yisrael. Achitophel was the great wise man. He was one of originally David's advisors. He was the one who had plotted together with Avshalom to have David killed. Ubilam Umasolam. Bilam was the prophet of the world. He had great wisdom. Shneim Ovdu min Olam Hazeh. And they both were lost. They were destroyed from this world. Umin Olam Haba. This world and the world to come. Shnei Giborim Amdu Ba'olam. Two powerful people exist in this world. Unusual might. Echad Yisrael, Echad Umasolam. One was a Jew, one was a Gentile. Shimshon Yisrael, Goliath Umasolam. Goliath, the giant, was a Philistine. Shneim Ovdu min Olam. They both destroyed. Shnei Ashirim Amdu Ba'olam. Two wealthy people, the wealthiest people who ever lived. Echad Yisrael, Echad Umasolam. One was a Jew, one was a Gentile. Korach Yisrael, V'Haman Umasolam. Haman, he was the viceroy of the Persian Empire. Shneim of them, they both destroyed from this world. Lama, why? Why were they destroyed? Because the gifts they had were not divinely endowed. They seized it. It's not meant to be theirs. They took certain initiatives, and because of those initiatives, it's considered they seized it, they grabbed it. Literally means they grabbed it. And because they grabbed it, ultimately they were destroyed through this. Their lives came to an end. Not good things came from this. Because what was the motivation to have wealth? It was Korah. It was envy. It was his haughtiness. So ultimately, he wanted wealth because he wanted power. He wanted recognition. He wanted acknowledgement. God did this. He took it. He grabbed it. In the words of the Midrash, chotaf. Same thing with what? With Haman. He himself felt everybody has to bow. Everybody's secondary to him. The whole empire. Came out to Motzi, B'nai Gad, B'nai Ruvain. Shoyu Ashirim Harbe. They had phenomenal wealth. Voyolem Mikne Godel. And they had great herds, great flocks, livestock. The Chivus Mamonam. And the money was endeared to them. And because of that, Yoshu Lem Chutz Loretz. Because of the money, they're willing not to cross the Jordan, to dwell in Israel proper with their brothers. Therefore, they were the first ones to be exiled. Shenemar Vayagleim Lurvuni Lagodi V'chatzei Shevet Nashi. As it says, at the time of Sancheriv, they were the first ones. Before the 10 tribes, they were the first ones to go into exile. Umigoram. What was the cause of this? Al Shefrishu Atzim Nachem. Because they separated themselves from that support system, not to be among their brothers. For what? Because of the livestock. So what is it? They grabbed it. So is it the land that God gave it? Is it divinely endowed? Or this is manly endowed? From where do you bring the recording? I'm singing God's praises. I'm expressing my debt of gratitude. This grain, this produce, this land that you, God, gave us. God never gave that to you. Israel proper, God gave you. That's bracha. That only generates. So God says, I want you to express debt of gratitude. The Transjordan side, lokhu mi'atzma. They grabbed that. Why did they grab it? I mean, logically, rationally, they should have crossed the Jordan, been with their brothers, been in an environment which is conducive to spirituality. So why weren't they? Because they valued their money more than their brothers. Therefore, they were the first ones to fail and to be exiled. So what are you going to say? God says, I want you to see the person, God forbid, says, a certain person has an addiction, and by giving that person the means to support the addiction, he's going to destroy his life. You say, when I give you the money, I want you to sing my praises. But by giving him the means, he's going to destroy himself. So what God's going to say, when you bring the grain and the produce from the Transjordans, I want you to sing my praises. Your debt of gratitude. God says this is spiritual suicide. Am I going to ask you that there should be a debt of gratitude for something which is to detriment? That I relinquished it to you? Because the path you choose to walk, you're going to walk that path. That's your choice. Because life is choice. So you can have situations where initially it was not meant to be if you were chosen differently. But if you make the wrong choice, the negative choice, God will lead you down that path and present every situation to actually motivate that you should succeed in that direction. But God's not going to say, I want you to say thank you. I want you to acknowledge and express your praise, that there's any debt of gratitude. Definitely not. This mitzvah we read last week, that if you come upon a mother bird who's nesting on its chicks, on its eggs, before you take the mother bird, before you take the chicks or the eggs, you must send away the mother bird. Mitzvah shluch hakan, positive commandment. Shalech tashalech hasaim, abonim tikach loch. Send away the mother, then you will take the children, the chicks. So the Mishnah tells us in Brochos that if a person says certain things, you silence him. A person says Shema Shema. Says Shema, you start to question what it means. You say, you silence him. Because it seems, you're declaring to your belief there's only one God, so why are you repeating it? A person says Modim Modim. He gets Modim and Achaloch. And he says it twice. What are you saying it twice? You only have to say there's only one God. So it could be interpreted that, God forbid, there's more than one power. Mishaskanosa. What about a person supplicates God? Yagil rachmecho, your mercy should come upon me the way it comes upon the children of the mother bird. As you commanded us to send away the mother bird, which is an expression of your mercy, that the mother should not see her chicks or her eggs being taken, your mercy should come upon us as it comes upon the mother bird. Mishaskanosa. There's a question of what exactly does it mean? Why? Seems to be saying, okay, he's saying something which is appropriate. It's an act of mercy. God, that he commands us that you're not permitted to take the chicks if the mother is present, it's because you feel compassion for the mother bird. Send away the mother bird, she shouldn't see taking the chicks or the eggs. So there's a famous, the Vilna Gaon cites the Jerusalem Talmud that says, don't you think the mother bird knows exactly what's going to happen, why you're sending her off? Mother bird knows. What she does is, she finds the closest body of water, and out of pain, she drowns herself. Because she cannot tolerate the pain, knowing that you're going to take her children, her offspring. So what do you say? Yagir rachmecho, your mercy should come upon me the way it's upon the mother bird. It's not an act of mercy. The way we process it, in reality, it's an act of cruelty. How do we understand it? We don't understand it. We don't understand it. It's like a statute. It's a statute of God. Superficially, it appears to be that. So what are you praying? You're praying to God that he should be cruel to you. So therefore you say, you remain silent. Silence. It's the same thing. God says, I want you to sing my praises for the produce and the grain you bring from the Transjordan side. Did you realize this is not a gift of God? This is to your detriment. If you wouldn't have taken it yourself, I wouldn't have given it to you. Because ultimately it's going to lead to your demise, your spiritual demise, to your exile. So there are many things in life we ask for which aren't necessarily in our best interest. It's not in our best interest. But if we ask for whatever reason, we say, Raglech Hasidiv Yishmar. If a person asks for something which is not appropriate, and he's a tzaddik, and he's only mistakenly asks, Hashem will protect him or give it. But let's say a person, his intention, doesn't have that rating of being such a special person. And he wants that to actually to ingratiate himself, to inflate himself, to magnify himself, to be more of a hedonist. God says, no problem. You can have it. God will give it to you. Because otherwise, how do you have a choice to be that or not that? But what? God says, now I want you to say thank you. Sing my praises, come to the location of the Shekhinah, and what? And say to God, thank you. Of course not. Therefore, to exclude what you took yourself, that means you initiated. That's called chodfu. They grabbed it. When you grabbed it from there, you don't sing my praises. I'd ask the question, so we're saying now, what is the essence of the mitzvah of bringing the Bikurim with its declaration, which is referred to as Kriyas Bikurim? It says, Yivomarte Elov, and you say to him, you say to the Kohen, She'enoch Kofui Tova. Rashi cites a Sifri. You say to the Kohen, I am not an ingrate. This is an obvious question. He shouldn't say, I'm not an ingrate. I'm appreciative. Why speak in the negative? Speak in the positive. I'm bringing the produce, the grain, to the Temple Mount, to the location of your presence, to express my appreciation that I'm appreciative. But that's not what he's saying. I want to state I am not an ingrate. But if actually bringing the Bikurim, the new fruits, is an expression of thankfulness, so you're showing you're appreciative. So why speak in the negative, speak in the positive? It's very interesting. We find that at the beginning of creation, God creates Adam. And he's in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. And there's a tree, it's called the tree of knowledge. The fruit of the tree of knowledge is referred to, it's tov v'ra. It's good and evil. And he says you should not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Okay? And the day that you will eat, you will die. That's what God says to Adam initially, after he creates him. The day that he created him, he was instructed not to eat. And the day, and he understood the consequence. Then he creates a wife for him. Chava, Isha. And why did he create a helpmate? Eza Kenegdo. Because the only way he could succeed in his spiritual objective and purpose, he needs a helpmate to assist him. So the wife is for his ultimate good. He can only meet his potential, spiritually speaking, if he has a wife. Eza Kenegdo. So we have the story with the snake. The snake seduces Savo. She eats of the tree of knowledge. She offers the fruit to Adam. They're both driven of the Garden of Eden. But before they're driven from Gan Eden, Hashem says to Adam, why did you eat? I told you not permitted to eat. So what does Adam say to Hashem? Isha asher nosati modi. It's the wife that you gave me. Understand? He's putting the blame on Hashem. God, it's your fault. Because you gave me this wife to be with me, you're the cause of my failing. Rather than acknowledging it's his failing, and the wife is the ultimate good, he says, God, you're at fault. So Hashem says to Adam, you're a kofim tova. You're an ingrate. Here I give you something which has infinitely precious, and all your level of success is dependent upon her. You're saying the reason why you failed is my fault because I provided you with a special woman. You're an ingrate. Kofi Tova. Now, we find the Gemara cites a verse in Yechezkel that initially Adam was called Adam. That was his appellation. But because he ate of Eitz Hadas, he was declassified. His classification was changed. He's no longer called Adam. What is Adam? Adam means the world, you are the center of the universe. The only way the objective of creation can be met or addressed is only through you. Now that you failed, you're no longer qualified to be that individual. We'll see. Of your progeny, of your descendants, one will be. Who ultimately was chosen? Who made the grade to be the Adam? The descendants of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. At Sinai, when we said Naaseh v'Nishma, the objective of existence was B'shvil Torah Nikras Reishis. The world was created for Torah and for Klal Yisrael. We're the only nation qualified to receive the Torah. We assumed the position, the status of Adam. Atem kriyim Adam, hem lo kriyim Adam. Your classification is Adam, meaning, doesn't mean human being. Your classification is the individual who is able to meet the spiritual objective of creation. No other nation could meet that. Atem kriyim Adam. Now, why did Adam forfeit that classification? Because rather than saying initially, I regret I failed, he said, God, it's you, it's not me. Because he was an ingrate. So the characteristic of the ingrate initially was introduced for the first time in history was by the first man created, Adam. The 40th year in the desert, what happens? We're ready, there's the new generation. And God is hurrying us to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. It's 40 years already. All of a sudden, they come with a complaint to Moshe. The man was miracle food. Every day would fall. There was always sufficient amount for every Jew, his family. It was a wafer-like food, and it had an unusual characteristic. Besides nourishing them, sustaining them, spiritualizing them, it what? It was like a wafer, a thin wafer. And when you ate it, there was no waste. It was absorbed in the inner organs. So they come to Moshe and says, we're not in this lechem haklokel, this insignificant food. Why? So Rashi cites the Midrash. They said, it's unheard of. We've been ingesting this for years. Nothing's expelled from the body. You know what we're concerned? That it's there, it's festering in our systems. Ultimately, it's going to expand, and our intestines are going to burst, and we're all going to die from this month, from this miracle food. So we believe to be in our best interest, it's to our ultimate detriment. God immediately sends vipers, poisonous vipers, to bite them. Jews realized they made a mistake. They spoke out of turn. God says to Moshe, make a copper snake on a pole. They'll look at it. They'll pray to me. Whoever looks, prays, who's sincerely, will recover. That's what happens. When they said lechem haklokel, so Gemara says, you know what God says? B'nei kfui tova b'nei kfui tova. Your ingrates, who are the children of the original ingrate. Meaning the characteristic of the ingrate that Adam expressed when he says, God, it's you, it's not me. They're speaking also. Saying the exact same, verbatim. Here I give you something which is your ultimate best interest. And you're accusing me that ultimately this is going to be the basis for your demise. You're the ingrates. You're ingrates who descend from the original ingrate. Kfui tov b'nei kfui tova. It's a little bit of a problem. Why did Adam not merit to be Adam? Because he had the characteristic of being an ingrate. Rather than saying, I have remorse, I sinned, I shouldn't have, but to fault God, your classification is lost. You're no longer classified as that. You've lost out. You could never recover. Now the Jews are about to enter Eretz Yisrael, which is called Eretz HaKadosha, to have this special relation with God. All of a sudden now they're displaying the characteristic to be declassified. It's disastrous. You have the snakes, the vipers. We come to Eretz Yisrael. We recovered. It's the 15th year we're bringing the produce. Now we stand in the sanctuary. What's the sanctuary? God's presence is in the sanctuary. The Shekhinah is there. What the sanctuary itself, with divine's presence, is what it is. What is it equivalent of? It's the equivalent of Adam before the sin in the Garden of Eden. The Shekhinah, the divine presence, was in the Garden of Eden. What happened after Adam ate of the tree of knowledge? The divine presence ascended from this world. Because the world became putrefied, God removed himself from his existence. There's no one he could have a relationship with. What happened at Sinai? The Jews brought God back into this existence. That's heaven came to earth. Now, we come into the sanctuary. This is the equivalent of Sinai. God's presence is here. This is the Garden of Eden pre-sin. We bring the fruits, the grain. God, we're not ingrates. Not we're appreciative. We are not ingrates. That since, what is the objective of our existence in Eretz Yisrael? Atem kriyim odom, v'hem lo kriyim odom. Your objective is to address the purpose of creation, which is spirituality, to bring yourselves to a perfect state and the world to a perfect state. But if you have the characteristic of being great, then you're not qualified. Therefore, the statement is not, I'm appreciative. The statement is, I don't have the blemish. I'm not blemished with the characteristic of ingrate. Because if I'm an ingrate, then I lose the classification of Adam. That's why he says, rather than saying I'm appreciative, he says, I'm not an ingrate for that reason. So therefore, now, how do we see, where do we see that the sanctuary, which God's presence was there, is the equivalent of Adam pre-sin? As God's presence was in the Garden of Eden before the sin, the sanctuary in the Beis Hamikdash or in the Mishkan is identical to that setting. Where do we see this? It's interesting. We've learned if a woman, God forbid, is a suspected adulteress, she's forewarned by her husband not to sequester herself, screw herself with another man. She defies his warning, and the forewarning was witnessed, and she goes and secludes herself, sequesters herself with another man, and it's also witnessed. She's not permitted to her husband, unless it's verified that she's not committed adultery. Now, how do you verify it? Firstly, she comes out, she claims her innocence. She says she did not commit adultery. So there's a process, there's a procedure. It's called the drinking of the Mesota. They write a certain writ with God's name on it, and they take water from the laver, from the key, or put it into a vessel, and they take some dust from the floor of the sanctuary. They obliterate the writ into the water with God's names obliterated. She drinks it. And she takes an oath before that she didn't commit adultery. And if, God forbid, she's guilty, she will swell to a point where she will burst and she becomes dismembered. So the Rechaim HaKodesh goes to explain what exactly this is about. The name of God, the water from the laver, and the dust from the floor of the sanctuary. What is this all about? So he says, initially, what was the sin of the tree of knowledge? Adam was said not to eat of the tree of knowledge. The snake goes and seduces Savo to eat, but not only eat. It says, Bo nochosh v'it bo zuma. He actually committed adultery. The snake actually penetrated Savo. That's what happened. So we're talking about there was Gilei Arayos. There was adultery, equivalent of adultery. Besides eating the tree of knowledge, God says, if this is what it's about, I'm removing myself from this existence. That's what God said. So what was the original cause of God to remove? It wasn't just eating the tree of knowledge. It was also because the law of adultery was violated. Now, this woman, she's a suspected adulteress, if she did commit adultery. Now, we find that there's a positive commandment that when one brought a sacrifice in the Mishkan, or in the Beis Hamikdash, you had to salt the korban, the sacrifice. It says, Kol karboncha takriv olav melech. You have to salt. Why? Why does every carbon need salt? Because we find at the beginning of creation, it says God separated between the upper waters and the lower waters. So the lower waters came to God crying. They said, it's not fair. The upper waters, they're in the spiritual stratospheres, they're close to God. You put us in an earthy, mundane location. God says, it's not a problem. The water is ocean water, is salt. Every carbon that they bring in the Mishkan Beis Hamikdash, the temple, Kol Karbonocha Takrav Olav Melech. You have to salt. So the salt will be associated with me in the sanctuary. So being there, it's the equivalent of being in a spiritual setting with the Shekhinah is. Meaning the divine presence in the sanctuary is the equivalent of the divine presence in heaven. Therefore, you're not detached. That was the consolation to the water. But even more than that, he says, why is the water taken from the laver? The water in the laver, although it's on the terrestrial level, is the equivalent of the water in heaven. Because what is the sanctuary? We'll call the Azara. That's the divine presence there. So what did this woman do? God once left this existence because through adultery, existence was putrefied, spiritually speaking. Now she commits adultery and she drinks this water with the name of Hashem obliterated in it. What kind of water is she drinking? It's water which has special holiness because it's association to the divine presence. If she committed adultery, what is she trying to do? To drive God out of existence. So how does the water react? Here the water says, I've been given an opportunity even on the terrestrial level to be attached to God, but due to your unacceptable behavior, again, he's going to detach from me. Therefore, there's a violent reaction. That violent reaction causes her to swell, to burst, and to die. This is how he explains it based on the Zohar. So what is the level of the Kedusha of the divine presence in the sanctuary? It's like being in heaven. So we see again, what is Gan Eden? The Garden of Eden before the sin and the sanctuary are identical. Where do you make the declaration, I am not an ingrate? In the location of the divine presence. To say, although Adam forfeited that classification because he wasn't ingrate, I am not an ingrate, therefore I'm qualified to be classified as the Adam. That's one proof to this. Another proof is a famous question. The Gemara asks in one location, before Aaron and his children were installed as Kohanim, Moshe Rabbeinu officiated the 7 days in the Mishkan. So the Gemara asks, what did he wear? Did he have vestments? We know Aaron, the priestly vestments, the vestments of the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, vestments of an ordinary Kohen. What was the vestment of Moshe? So Gemara says he wore a white tunic. So what does that mean? He wore a white tunic. So the vestments of the Kohen, the Torah refers to when Moshe was told that the vestments have made, it says l'chavod u'letiforos, for glory and for splendor. That's the value of the vestments of the Kohen, of the high priest and the ordinary priest, common priest. Now, why do they need vestments? Why do they need special vestments? So the Shalah Kodesh explains that initially, what was the vestment given to man to serve God? What is the essence of the person? The soul. So what is the levush? What is the vestment? The physical body. What happens if you putrefy the body? Because he ate of the tree of knowledge. You took ra, it's soiled. A vestment that's soiled, that's not a valid vestment. It's not qualified to officiate in the presence of God. So Aaron Ubana of the Kohanim, the bodies already, they're disqualified. Because they've been putrefied with the ra of the tree of knowledge. So therefore for them you have to make vestments, l'chavod u'teferes, for glory and for splendor. Otherwise they're not qualified to officiate. Moshe Rabbeinu was so holy, his vestment was his physicality. His physical body was the vestment. Therefore, The Gemara says, so what did he officiate? He just had his nakedness covered. It was a white tunic just to cover his nakedness. But in terms of what was his vestment was his body. Again, so to stand in the presence of Adam Arisha initially, before he ate of the tree of knowledge, what was his vestment to serve God in the Garden of Eden? In the location of the Shekhinah? His body. He was naked. As it says, they didn't realize that they were naked in terms of that it had any negative connotation. It didn't. Because it was holy. It was a holy vestment. When did it take on that negative connotation? When it became spiritually putrefied. When the evil it became soiled with evil. The Ra. So what is the Mishkan? To officiate, to be qualified to officiate in the sanctuary. What kind of vestment do you have to wear? You can't officiate in your body, with your body. You need special vestments. So what does that say? That the level of divine presence in the Mishkan is no less than the divine presence in the Garden of Eden before the sin. Therefore, we come to Eretz Yisrael to begin serving God. Kol ador b'chutz le'ein lo eloka. Outside of Israel, like you have no God. What is the first thing we say? We are qualified officiants. Why? Because we're not in grace. Because if we would be in grace, we would not be qualified. Because then we'd be declassified, chas v'sholom. We would not be considered the Adam.